Welcome back to Ready, Set, Sold. I am your host, Bryan Vogt. I left you with talking about the other two things that you need to be aware of when it comes to pricing your home, and hopefully your agent's aware of this too. These are things that you and a seller need to be talking about. I think last week I talked about a segment about how sometimes agents want to take over the situation and won't let you do this, and you can't get your house on the market. And it actually was a tip of the week, and it just talked about how you can lose serious money, and not only the money, but just the time of getting on with your life and doing things that you want. So again, you and your agent should be having more of a consultation. They should be able to give you information to understand where you're at and why pricing can be so important. And with that said, we talked about the last segment about location. I think people get that for the most part. I think sellers understand that. But then it's also how you play to the other areas, your location, to the other houses that have sold. And we talk about this numerous times before, but it bears repeating. We're going to presume, because most sellers do, they already have the updating done. Okay? But if you don't, it's very, very hard to get top dollar if the house that's sold, not maybe even next door or two doors down, if you're comparing them and you haven't done you haven't done flooring for 10 years. I mean, you just haven't done it. Maybe you meant to. Look, life gets hectic, life gets busy. But now it's time to get top dollar for your house. Or maybe those bedrooms that you've been meaning to repaint, and maybe it was fine at the time when you moved in, but that's been 15 years ago. And now, all of a sudden you start thinking about the paint job is about 20 years old. Just so you know, buyers can tell. Because buyers are going into other houses. On average, buyers are going to look at 10 houses to make a decision. So when they're going into that house, they see houses that have the paint, believe me, and the flooring, and the updates. They can tell that very, very quickly. Sometimes sellers will think that, well, the carpeting isn't that great, the buyers will never know, especially if they're first-time home buyers. Simply not true. It does not take very long for buyers to figure it out. Whether they've ever seen carpeting before or not, or what have you, or even painting. So again, making sure that you have those updates of what you're comparing to. And the good news is, most sellers already have done this. But just in case, if you haven't, you want to make sure that the houses that have sold near you in the last 3 to 4 months, 4 months being a stretch, have actually compare well to your home. Square footage is a factor, but it's not the main thing. Again, are you close on square footage? Your location is going to dictate more of that. You've heard the expression of being the best house on the block. That's not a good thing. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about. We had a situation where we know of a seller that had 1,000 square foot more. And they did. They had 1,000 square footage in their house. And for that, they came up with a idea of price per square foot. And they decided that, well, even though it was $100,000 more, okay, when they did the square footage analysis, they decided to only take half at $50,000. Well, so they priced their home at $275,000. The trouble is that no one had sold a house near them in the past 3 to 4 months for more than $225,000 and $230,000. Again, square footage is a factor, but when you use it that way, it just, long story short, put them completely out of their whole market, their whole location. What happened? Almost a year to sell it. What'd they sell it for? Close to $225,000. Okay, so actually a little bit less than what they could have gotten if they had put it on the market for the right pricing and made that decision. Doesn't happen very often, but that's where you can really get in trouble. So you start taking that, and that's a year. Okay, again, average $2,000 a month when you look at insurance and taxes and principal and interest, as I may have mentioned, and the upkeep and the yard work and all this other work. Look at $24,000 just taken off the top. So even though they got $225,000, as I mentioned, they really got $200,000. And then the time and the pain and it's not unusual for couples to really start going after each other. They have different, reasons of why they want to sell. They both are on the same page, but we've seen situations where, yes, traditionally it's the woman. Let's just get out of Dodge. Let's just go. Okay, we're not going to get any better. Let's just make some price drops and get this thing sold. And sometimes traditionally the man is wanting to hold out. I can tell you, it just makes for a very, very tough situation. You have to understand also is that as your house is on the market, you're getting more and more houses onto the market. A kind of a fun fact that we kind of always want to present, and this has been going on for at least the last 10 years. National Association of Realtors came out that in the first 45 days, 75% of the houses that sell are going to sell within that first 45 days. And they're going to sell within less than 2% of asking price. Less than 2% of asking price. This is how you get top dollar in a fast sale. Those that don't, the other 25%, 90% do not sell at all. 90% do not sell at all. So again, so that means 10% to do. It's argued that we've seen from our experience that 5% usually run into appraisal problems. So you have about a 95% failure rate by overpricing your home and a 5% success rate. Those aren't very good odds. So again, this is from the National Association of Realtors, and we found that to be absolutely 100% true when we put houses on the market. That yes, it's possible, but boy, it's more likely it's not going to sell, and it's going to create a lot of problems. So that's really important to understand with that segment too, when you're talking about the location and the square footage. And as I mentioned too, is the condition. If you don't have this house in good working order and doing the updates, it's not going to go well. It's just not going to go well. The great news, most sellers get that. The one thing I do like about the shows, even though I don't like the improvements they do, and I'm not recommending that you watch them, but they always are stressing the need of getting things in good working order, to getting, the painting and getting the floorings. I don't agree with what they're always putting down, but at least they are saying that you need to make sure your house is standing out and doing the neutral updates. So those things are pluses there. So they do have some value in that sense, and that's a good thing. With that said, what we're going to be talking about in the next segment, and that is going to be the tip of the week, and it's going to be talking about the fact of basically how you really need to call your agent before you spend a dime on your house, and some couple of stories that I relate to you about that. In the meantime, again, don't forget about Texas. Go to Red Cross during the break and make your donation. And also get the book, Ready, Set, Sold. Go to readysetsold.org and get the book. It's an easy read. Look, if you're 2 years down the road, or we just worked with somebody that we started talking to in 2 years and got them the book, they were all ready to go. They were retiring down to Florida. Seems to be a popular place. And it's worked out great for them, and we get their house sold for top dollar in a fast sale. You can have those same results too. Hey, stay tuned for the tip of the week. We'll see you in a few.